Do you believe the US government has all the gold that it claims to have?
No, I don't. If they did, why wouldn't they want to clear the air? Why wouldn't they have a commission that I was included in? Let's go and see and convince us that you have the gold.
I'm so honored to introduce my next guest, former congressman, three-time presidential candidate, and author of one of my favorite books, End the Fed, Dr. Ron Paul. Ron, thank you so much for joining me today.
Natalie, it's nice to be with you.
Well, I want to start by getting your thoughts on the actions taken so far by the new administration and all the government waste and fraud that's being uncovered by DOGE.
I think it's exciting, but I've worked on an assumption over the years that government are wasteful and fraudulent and very, very harmful. So that's the nature of government. But obviously that doesn't mean everybody's that way. And sometimes it gets out of control. And our founders intended the government to be very, very small, but they also warned if the people weren't a moral people, the thing wouldn't work. And I think that's where we are now. So there's a lot of waste, fraud, and deceit that goes on. And the wastefulness is so bad. I think that we've gotten away with it for so long. We go through periods, we have ups and downs, booms and busts. But I think this one is probably bigger than going on. And it's so bad that people are willing to even listen to what the administration is doing. There was a major change in the administration. And I think that's symbolic of the danger that we're in. And that this downturn, which we're in the middle of, but a lot of people don't admit to, is going to be a lot worse than they've had before. It may even prompt a serious consideration for having a different reserve currency in the world, and maybe more and more people will be giving up on the dollar, which would be a very dangerous situation.
Well, I want to actually talk to you about that and circle back in a moment. But first, you've shared that bureaucracy is really the result of ignoring the U.S. Constitution. Can you share what you mean by that?
Well, I for a lot of times in Congress, I would ask the other members, Article 1, Section 8 is pretty important. The founders thought they wanted to make it clear on what authority they were given to the federal government. So Article 1, Section 8 does that. And then they said, if we didn't mention it, you don't have it. The powers we didn't mention, the 10th Amendment says everything goes back to the states and to the people. And boy, that's not complicated at all. And just think of all these agencies and what they've been doing and what's been exposed with this revelation. I mean, it's been so bad for so long that probably, I think 80% of what the federal government does is technically probably unconstitutional. So a little bit helps. And I think that we have a long way to go to get the American people to understand, that major changes have to occur. I'm delighted at the discussion, say, on education. They're talking about not just, I don't like it when they tinker around the edges and cut 20% and say, see, we're moving along. But the principle still remains there. Right now, we hear talk about how did the federal government ever get control of our educational system? And I consider that so important because I think that's where so many people are misled in history and economics and the work. So I think there's some good things happening, but I also think there's some bad things that could happen if we don't get this thing straightened out.
Well, we're supposed to have checks and balances. So how did we get to a place where there's all this reckless spending that's been brushed under the rug and not audited for so long when we're supposed to have agencies specifically dedicated to auditing, right?
Well, I think in a way the market has benefited us when we were blessed with a very, very wealthy country, resources and all. And we had a lot of license because we ended up after World War II with the legal aspect of counterfeiting money for the world, and the temptation was there, and we in this country did it. So oh yeah, people have this idea that, we're powerful now, we should police the world. And so we became the policemen of the world. And people did it with a good feeling. We're tough and we run things and we're wealthy. And we still are probably the wealthiest country in the world. But people are realizing it's unfortunately all based on debt. And people are starting to wake up to realize that debt can't go on forever. So it was the good part of freedom that produced a lot. The production that occurred in this artificial economy that was fed with artificial money, I think it was hiding the problem. If we'd have had to pay for everything that we've used, if we'd have had to pay for, say, all the wars we've been in, there'd have been a lot less wars. So, the wealth that we had and the ability to have a military and the ability to have the reserve currency in the world was a big temptation for the politicians, and the people liked it too. The more you promise, the more we'll vote for you. And both parties have been, very, very good at spending money and offering more stuff to the people. They're still trying to do it, but right now they're running out of steam, and that's why I think this year is going to be different and is already different than ever before, because we're getting something done that I've been arguing forever, especially with the Fed. Audit, audit, audit. Let's find out what they're doing. It's a shame that it's gotten this far. That's the biggest, the most important thing we can do is to continue with these audits that Leon and Trump have been doing. This is good.
Coin Stories is brought to you by Genius Group, a Bitcoin treasury company listed on NYSE American, ticker GNS. Genius is on its way to hodling 1,000 Bitcoin in its treasury while educating the world on a Bitcoin-first future. Genius is also launching the Bitcoin Academy with courses from the likes of Saifedean Ammous, author of the Bitcoin Standard. Join the launch waitlist via the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes and receive the weekly Bitcoin Treasury newsletter, plus a chance to win a whale pass to Bitcoin 2025 in Vegas this May. Genius Group. Genius isn't measured in IQ, it's measured in Bitcoin. Coin Stories is also brought to you by Bitdeer, a global leader in disruptive technology for Bitcoin mining and high-performance computing for AI. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer boasts a massive 2.5 gigawatts of electrical capacity and infrastructure across 3 continents, positioning Bitdeer as one of the most diversified and power-dense computing companies in the world. Learn more at bitdeer.com. All right, back to the show. Well, yeah, there have been calls to audit our nation's gold. Trump even talked this week about going to Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there.
But we're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there.
How do you feel about that, and what do you think we'd find?
Well, I've talked about that for a long time, because when a country debases its currency, then they debase the currency by being dishonest. And we've been dishonest probably immediately after the Fed was created, because back then there was a ratio of $20 to 1 ounce of gold. And yet we were still very wealthy after World War II, even wealthier. And so nobody really cared as long as people trusted it to the dollar. So the spending was endless. But before 1971, I remember becoming interested in all that was going on. And there were people back then, especially the free market economists, the Austrian economists, were predicting that you can't do this. It's going to break down. And so on August 15th, 1971, that was a real revelation to me. It was a confirmation that the things that I had been reading came true. And it was a bankruptcy. And they, in 1933, they took away the right to own gold. So it is, and so I had bills in to audit not audit the Fed, but audit the gold holdings too, and the idea has come up. But back at the end of the 70s, I introduced a resolution along with Senator Helms to study the monetary system, the world monetary system. And during that commission that was established, we had one vote. There were 17 members of the commission, and I brought up the subject of auditing gold because if you're going to start over again, you ought to know what you have. What are your real assets? And so I did get a vote on the committee about what we should do, and I didn't do so well. The vote was 15-2 against auditing. It just for look at us, just
Wow.
tell us we have the gold or not. But that's what happens when they destroy a currency. Trust is only restored when you have the return of honest money.
Do you believe the US government has all the gold that it claims to have?
No, I don't. But I don't have evidence to prove it. A lot of people write about it and explain it. But no, in a way, if they did, why would they want to clear the air? Why wouldn't they have a commission that I was included in? And let's go and see and convince us that you have the gold. So no, and even if they showed us the gold, maybe the gold has been loaned out. They do a lot of loaning gold,
Right.
and they have other ways of having a gimmick to deceive the people, and they can get away with that for years and years because from the beginning of the Fed with the gold at $20 an ounce, it went all the way to 1971 by just lying to the people, and then when they said we have to admit well we're broke and we don't have the gold, what happened to the ratio from 1971 to 1979, 1980? Gold went from $35 an ounce up to $3,000 where it is now, close to $3,000. So that's a lot of catching up to do. But people, money it deserves confidence, and if you have confidence in a fiat currency, it works for a long time. But when you lose confidence, which is what's happening, people are losing confidence internationally, and that is why other countries are talking about starting a new currency, and the other countries are getting together and starting to talk about it, a competing currency. And I think that's a sign of the times that our dollar is in bad shape.
I know there are a lot of people that would like you to audit the Federal Reserve. I've seen Elon Musk retweet these types of requests. Is there a possibility we would see that?
I would think very slim.
Why is
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think independence. I want to do what I can. I'd be an advisor. I'd look after and suggest things, but they might put me on the payroll to do it, and then I'd be responsible for everybody who's on the payroll. So I guess I have an independence about me that I would I would urge it, and I encourage people to do it, and audits are great. And if they were interested in what I had to think about it, I'd be very glad to help. But they go there and do it because I'd want it really done fast and correctly. And I don't think, and when you do that, whether it's the gold or the Fed, if you get rid of the Fed tomorrow, you say, "Wow, that's it. The world has gotten rid of a bad currency." I don't think it would work. There's too many people living within the bounds, of the dollar. It's going to end, and it will probably end badly. And the longer they wait, the worse the conditions will get. But if I passed a law and said the Fed can no longer, from this day on, buy any government treasury bills, a government instrument, the thing would come crashing down, and then who knows what could happen? It would be a political chaos. So that's why I start with the audit, and that's why I think what Trump is doing. They're starting with audits and looking at it, and the exposure of USAID has just been fantastic. I knew it was bad, but then, holy man, it really is bad. And so I think the audit, and that's what would happen if we ever had a chance to audit the Fed of all the shenanigans going on. And yet they've been able to use that secrecy to pull many people out of trouble and go on to the next surge of inflation. But it's running out of steam. The dollar is running out of steam now, and we'll have to resolve it. And that's why people are thrashing and looking and getting angry. And so it won't go away gracefully.
Well, to your earlier point, we've come to really rely on the central bank and all the money printing that the Fed does. If we were to end the Fed tomorrow, the whole system would collapse.
Yeah.
So, what is the peaceful transition? How do we get out of this and return to sound money?
Well, I think some of the things that we could do is certainly remove, since they're not going to voluntarily say the Fed can't buy Treasury bills. But if the country decided that it would be better to spend less money and get rid of U.S. AIDs and all the rest of them, you could do that. If you wanted one big thing to restore confidence in the system, yeah, you'd get major overhaul of our foreign policy and bring our troops home. And that way you would say, well, you're going to cut back. And I said, yeah, but I wouldn't head first after child health care. I would go after the military industrial complex because it's so evil. It kills people and it's ongoing. And if you look at all the people who've died since World War II, you'll find out that it was our money. If you take the Middle East and Ukraine right now and look at the tragedy of what's happened there and how many people died, we had no soldiers there. We just had CIA agents and special forces. But I think that people would realize that it was our money, and our efforts, our policy. The American people haven't said anything. And that's what I've tried to do is get people. But I think you could cut there and say, I'm not going to cut next month, food stamps for poor people. But let's cut the food stamps for rich people, like the military industrial complex or the pharmaceutical index and all the big companies. When I went to Congress, I thought welfare was something that very poor people got, and they got food stamps. But the big deal is the big corporation. So we don't have free markets. What we have, and we don't have true fascism, but we're moving in that direction. But we have a system of corporatism, and that is the business of people work very closely, and they're part of the whole system. And I think the more you'll read about what Biden was doing, they were deeply involved with corporation, and their goal is to pay off their friends and for them to get very rich. And but the system rules finally because they always overstep themselves. Foreign policy, I think we've overstepped ourselves. I mean, going to Vietnam, going to the Middle East, going to Afghanistan, and trying to start another war with Iran, all this stuff. We're overboard, and that's going to bring it down. So I would start with, auditing and find out as much as you can. But the cutting I would do is militarism and the wars that we fight that never give us more security. It always diminishes our security, and it really wrecks the budget.
What a powerful way to put it, that the military industrial complex is basically like food stamps for the wealthy and the elite. That's a great analogy. So do you think that the US dollar should be the reserve currency, or should we move to something like Bitcoin potentially? What are your thoughts on Bitcoin?
Well, I don't think we should have much to say about it. The market should do it. I would not write a law that says all of a sudden people must use Bitcoin as legal tender. Gold was used, 6,000 years, and the founders decided, since they had the experience with the continental dollar and runaway inflation, they said legal tender has to be something of value. They think that you should be able to define it as a unit of account and be a means of exchange as well as a store of value, and gold and silver fit it. That's why the founders put it in the Constitution. Only gold and silver could be legal tender. And then I want to legalize competition. So I'm all for legalizing cryptocurrency and whatever people want to use. And with one very strict rule, no counterfeiting and no lying, no fraud. And I think people can use bananas if they want. but I would not do anything to try to promote something that I might not even understand. And I'm not a computer person, and I can't find out how cryptocurrencies fulfill the requirements that even Aristotle really knew and understand. He understood the principles about gold and money and sound money. And I think he was right, and I think everybody since that, because it's been around for a long time. The Byzantine Empire had a gold standard lasted 1,000 years, and the Byzant was a gold coin. So it can work. Something I don't know about, but I wouldn't cancel anything, and I wouldn't promote anything, because I think I quite frankly think the world over 6,000 years has always chosen gold and silver as the unit of account. And the most important thing is you can define the unit of account, but you can't define. One time I asked the Federal Reserve official on the committee, I said, what would you give me if I bring this paper dollar bill in here? It says it's a promise to pay. I said, what would you give me for it? I mean, in the old days, I could get a silver dollar. I remember because I did. I'd take a dollar and get a silver dollar. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, if you bring it into me, we'll reinforce it. We guarantee it. We'll give you another Federal Reserve note. We'll give you another paper money. So it's really a joke. And so that makes that currency, the good currency, bad too. And the people have to rebel, and that's what they're doing. They're rebelling against the dollar, but they're misinterpreting things. People say, well, my prices are going up. It must be the corporations gouging the people. No, it's not that. It's the unions. They want too much for their labor. And they say, what do you want from the politician? They say, well, we want more money. Well, that's the problem. Just take more money. Money is just, Federal Reserve notes. And on the short run, they work for a while. On the long run, we get what we have right now.
This episode is brought to you by Casa, the leader in Bitcoin self-custody solutions, helping people like me secure their wealth with simple, powerful multi-key vaults. And now Casa is here to help businesses and governments do the same. Introducing Casa Business, a secure, easy-to-use 3-key vault designed specifically for small businesses with team signing capabilities and a web dashboard. Regardless of the size of your business, start your Bitcoin treasury the secure way. Take control and protect your assets. Get 10% off your Casa plan at casa.io/Natalie. Next up, Speed, the fastest growing Lightning wallet in the world and my preferred way to send and receive sats. You can use Speed to buy Bitcoin, swap with stablecoins like Tether, and snag gift cards to earn rewards, all in seconds. Download Speed via the QR code or the link in my show notes. Use code COINSTORIES10 for 5,000 free sats. And finally, are you ready to take control of your wealth, your Bitcoin, and your online privacy? The Bitcoin way is here to empower you. Learn to take full self-custody and eliminate all counterparty risk. Learn how to set up and run your own node, and upgrade your cybersecurity and build a fortress of privacy around your online activities and your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin way specializes in personalized one-on-one training. Schedule your free consultation at thebitcoinway.com/Natalie. All right, back to the show. Yeah, isn't it so crazy that inflation is really the greatest lie that we've been told, and no one sees how much of a hidden tax it is, that it just destroys our purchasing power, and they don't realize that the cause is the actual expansion of the money supply, and what we need is a return to hard money? Why do you think it's so hard to educate the average person about that?
It's a free lunch, and people get conditioned to it, because if they realize that you'd have to cut back spending, then that would affect it. And everybody has an interest in that. Yeah. So the people do support it. And they might say, well, you're right on the long run, but right now I need a much bigger check from the government. And I need the government to pay my education. I need the government to take care of my medical care. I need the government to do all these things. And it's real easy to be, sucked into that and become dependent on it. And the only party I know of that ever made a point, there is no such thing as a free lunch. And and people believe there is something to a free lunch, They may
Yeah.
think that it will work, they may not. They may say, well, we live temporarily. I don't even know what I'll be doing next year. But in the meantime, I need money for food. So it
Right.
continues, and the politician thrives on that.
Well, if you talk to Republican voters right now, it seems that they think that Trump's report card has been A plus plus. Everything's perfect. If you talk to Democrat voters, they say it's an F. It seems like we live in two completely different realities at the same time. So why do you think things have gotten so extreme? Aren't most people more moderate than the extremes were presented?
Well, I think so. I think the social mores and the and the internet promoted from the far left. It was so bad that the people finally rebelled. And even like, we do see good rebellions. I think the rebellion against all these vaccines are very important, even though that battle continues. But when all those regulations came in, and all of a sudden say this is over the top, and then they start hearing stories that more people died from the government orders and had the government mandated treatment, and the good people telling the truth, got banned and they got canceled. People know about that, and that's why things change. So I think conditions now, whether they're the social or whatever, people are saying that. But people are approaching that on the currency too, because more people now probably on gold and silver as a haven because they sense what's coming. And yet, I always fear government regulation. What was the first thing that Roosevelt did within a month or so of being elected in '32? He took the gold in. Then he remonetized it. The people had gold holdings, and it was $20 an ounce. He did it, and the next day it was $35 an ounce. But the government made all the profits. So I think it's big government. I think it's their unwillingness to follow, the Constitution. I just think it's a moral crisis, and it's both social and economics, and it's also foreign policy. And I think the one law I think is non-aggression. People don't have a right to kill, lie, cheat, or steal. And yet we're not allowed to do it, rightfully so. The people shouldn't be lie, cheating, and stealing and killing. And if we do, still, we think they're bad people. We want to lock them up. But governments do it all the time. They're the ones that, start the wars. It's not the 18 to 21-year-olds that say, oh, it'd be neat. I read stories about the war. Let's start a war. Why don't we fight the Soviets or something like that? Now, that is not the way it is. It's the very rich people that I think a good law would be that as members of Congress, whoever, instigated a war should have to be the first ones to be drafted. And I don't believe in a draft, but maybe for the people who create the wars how to be drafted.
Right, so that there are some consequences and again, accountability. We really need to shine a light on all these nooks and crannies that have been dark for so long. How do you see things playing out? I mean, do you anticipate a big crash? Of course, I think that they would just flood the market with money printing again and expand the balance sheet, but can we keep kicking the can down the road?
Yeah, a lot of people now say, well, there may be not inflation, but deflation. The money shrinks and the money value goes up. Now, it's going to be a big crash. It's on its way. I think it will continue. And the one argument against what I said, well, I can't do that in one day. This is going to crash everything, and people are going to be really furious. But if you don't do what you have to do, what I think Trump is trying to do, is you get away from that. And but if we don't get away from it, the crash is going to be bigger because it'll be a bigger bubble by then. So when we have these financial bubbles, you have to have liquidation of debt and liquidation of malinvestment, because a lot of people make mistakes because they are told that there are savings out there, and that's why interest rates are low. Well, there could be no savings, and nobody would have any money. They're just spending it, and yet interest rates would be 2%. Oh, this is a good time to buy a house. And maybe interest rates really should be 8 or 10%. So people do the wrong things, and it's part of the bubble. It's malinvestment, and I guess participation in war is a big malinvestment. The money is spent the wrong way, and there's no return. So it's a system of government applied by moral people. That is what we need. The founders warned us about that, and we have a shortage. But believe it or not, I'm still the optimist because I see good signs. Austrian economics. When I went to Congress, nobody ever heard of it, and I think you even mentioned that some of these events aren't quite as bad as people expected. There's a lot of good people out there. But to me, we only can go through this if we understand what's going on. In 1921, they had a bubble, and it went into a depression. And at that time, hands off, don't touch it, no need to. So a year and a half, the depression was over, and it was bad. I think the GDP went down 16% in 1 year. But then they went back, wiped out the bad debt. It's a shame you have to do that, but that's the treatment. Right now, we don't do that, and we just add more. We wipe out wealth, but not monetary debt. If somebody owes a lot of money, the government ends up buying. Oh, student loans, they're wonderful. Oh, I can't pay it back. Oh, we'll take them back.
Right.
It goes on and on, and that attitude will be liquidated along with liquidating the dollar and some other things.
Right. We need a return to the free market, and we can't have government reaching in, intervening, and choosing winners and losers, because at the end of the day, we destroy the working class and the fabric of America that way. So what do you think the average American should do to protect themselves going forward? I mean, so many people are struggling financially more than ever. What's your advice?
Well, I get this ask, and I imagine you're asking something along how do you protect your finances? How do you protect your person? There's a lot of things. People go out and try to find certain places, and they protect their families, and they try to invest correctly, and in the hard assets, and there are a lot of things. But I'm not in the business of telling people, investment advisor. But all those things are important, and do it. And I encourage people, but you have to have education. You have to know what to do and why precious metals are very important. But I tell them, if you really want to invest in something very worthy of your time, is invest in the cause of liberty. Because in spite of it, if tomorrow this whole thing came down on our heads, if they said, we're starting all over, we're going back to scratch, there's no income tax, there's no inflation, and there's no federal government regulations, no more wars. I'll tell you what, we would be rich in 1 year, I think. A lot of recovery would occur in a short period of time. But people would have to understand why you have to have a free society to have that happen.
Right. What do you think are the chances of Trump getting rid of something like the income tax?
Well, I guess it's possible, but I'm not holding my breath. I think he would like to, but no. But he's saying he might get rid of it by tariff. But for me, tariffs are taxes, and average people pay for it. It may be more aggressive than a lot of other taxes because the prices go up. And I see that as a moral issue. If I have $100 and I want to buy a pair of tennis shoes, and I go out and the shoes are $110, and I just barely buy for it. But what if China wants to sell them to me and they're better, and they want to charge me $40? Well, that's a good deal for me. I get the shoes. I get $60 left over. So right. The tariffs is, I don't like the tariffs. Tariffs are a tax, and you won't be able to replace the income tax with a tariff. The founders played games with that too, and they are around, and there's certain tariffs that might not be as bad as others, but the principle of massive tariffs and tariff wars, I believe tariffs lead to real wars. So I wouldn't promote the issue of tariffs.
So what would you do if you were president? What are 3 things you would do to help our economy?
veto, veto, veto. I'd veto all the bills that were constitutional, and then everything I could. The president would be in charge of the foreign policy. I'd bring the troops home and start
Mm.
saving money. So that'd be a couple things, and I think I'd do something like Trump is doing. Uh, but I would limit it. Yeah, I'd write executive orders to remove all the executive orders that were unconstitutional. I don't
Mm.
believe that we should manage a whole economy by executive orders, but some executive orders are necessary just to run the bare functions of government. So
Mm.
that principle isn't evil in itself, but to avoid involving the Congress to pass laws on what he wants to do, it should be very strict. So those three things would be very helpful, but a lot of people wouldn't like it.
Mhm. No, they wouldn't. They would cry out against against not getting the handouts anymore. Well, speaking of Congress, members of Congress earn salaries of what, $200,000, $300,000 a year, right? How are so many of them worth 20, 50, $70 million?
I must not have taken that course. I didn't see that. I have no idea. In a realistic sense, what one individual do, maybe they inherited or something else. But if you take many families, I think the Biden family demonstrates, how it's done. Members of Congress do get richer. Nancy Pelosi got richer in there, and she's been accused of, being able to use her knowledge and information she has
Yep.
to play the stock market. So there's a lot of people that do that, but there's a lot of people there. I've met some wealthy people, and they earned it. Actually, maybe started a business that continued while they were in office, and it was honestly earned money. So I don't want to say everybody that has money, but
Mhm.
so many of them come out a lot richer when they go in because of the special information and treatment they've gotten.
Yeah, a lot of people would like to see an audit of some of that.
Yeah,
All right, before we wrap up, I have to ask, do you own Bitcoin?
I own it. No, no, I don't own it.
Ah,
Any,
so
I don't own any Bitcoin.
Well, we hope that changes. We hope that changes. I know you're a big gold bug, but all right. You have an upcoming conference in Lake Franklin, Texas. That's on March 22nd. We're going to have a link to that in the show notes. Anything you want to share with that, and anything you want to leave the audience with?
Well, on the 22nd, we have people coming to the Lake Jackson area, and we do 2 or 3 of these a year, and they're sort of academic seminars, but they're a lot of fun because the people that come are very attuned to true liberty, and so it's a discussion group, and we have a lot of good speakers coming in. And I think they're very worthwhile. Daniel runs a little student education group the day before the conference, where individuals can get scholarships to come, and we've had a lot of people who have attended there, and they were college kids, and before I knew it, years ago past, they're into taking taking my advice seriously, because they would ask me frequently when I visit with them, what should I do now? I understand what's going on. So what should I do? And my remark is, just do whatever you want. Do anything you want, but do something that's going to promote the cause, and you'll do it different way. I've seen people start organizations. I've seen some people get on radio programs, have their own radio
Mm.
podcasts, and write books, become teachers, run for office. But every once in a while, I'll get one to come in and say, "How can I become a congressman?" And I can just see it in their eyes. Oh, they just want the prestige of being a
Mm.
congressman. I said, "Forget it. You don't need to do that, because that is what a lot of people want. They want to be a congressman. How you do it? Well, you have to have a lot of money, unfortunately,
Mm.
and or you have to be rich to do it. But I want people to change people's ideas, because
Mm.
I have said many times and strongly believe it, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped. And
Right.
hopefully we're seeing the ideas of liberty, perking up right now, and
Yeah.
becoming much more popular. And they say that armies cannot even stop a good idea.
That's so true. And we need more freedom fighters like you. Where I want to end this conversation is your optimism that you mentioned earlier. Why are you optimistic? So many people have lost hope, but why do you think that things will get better and we can become this prosperous nation again?
Well, there's been a lot of revelation. I think that when the depression was going on, Roosevelt ran on a very libertarianish, conservative constitutional platform. Uh, but the universities were filled with a bunch of progressives and authoritarians and foreign policy advocates that we had. So that's where it is, and that's why I promoted for years Lou Rockwell's, Mises Institute. But there's a lot of those, and our little outfit gets attention, and people can start their own policies, groups. And I am just amazed as time goes on. I'll meet people and they say, "Well, I started this after we went to some of your campaign things." So I think that the ideas are growing by leaps and bounds. And so I
Mhm.
don't think it's dead. But if you go out there and look at things, it looks horrible. You see what they're exposing. But the
Yeah.
fact that they're being exposed is the good news.
That's right. It gives us hope. And I know so many Bitcoiners are huge fans of your work, your ideas. So thank you so much for inspiring us. Dr. Ron Paul, I'll have your information as well as your event in the show notes. And thank you for the honor of joining me on my show.
Wonderful. Nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. Make sure you're subscribed to the show so you don't miss any new episodes. If you can, turn on those notifications and leave us a positive review. It really helps the show grow organically with new listeners. We have a free weekly newsletter. You can sign up at thenewsblock.substack.com. And remember, this show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. I'm always open to feedback and guest suggestions, so please feel free to reach out at info@talkingbitcoin.com. I'll see you next time.